everyone. Happy Tuesday. Happy So What Day. I hope you're getting a creative start to your day going and that, all the great weather is headed your way, or maybe the not so great weather. We are finally getting some rain. It's so exciting. So I hope it sticks around, honestly. We really, really need it. And snow is in the forecast. We'll see. I've been talking about this weird weather, which I know, we're normally talking about weird weather in the spring, but it's technically still winter. We should be having a winter. So I'm welcoming the rain. I'm doing the rain dance, all the things. All right. A number of you are now in the chat. I can see your faces. So good morning, everyone. I have a great project to share with you today because it's National Quilting Month. Right, after the first of the year, we have all of this exciting stuff going on in Sulky land. We have National Embroidery Month, with which we just kind of put a pin on for a little bit. But, here at Sulky, we're celebrating embroidery all the time. But at any rate, now it's time to kind of shift our focus to quilting for National Quilting Month. And all month long, we're going to be giving you some quilty projects, some tips for piecing, and of course, all the great threads and quilting techniques and options and all of that fun stuff. So if you're new to quilting or if you haven't made a quilt in a long time, it's a great time to be part of the Sulky community and come on over and get all of these great projects. I'm going to start off with something super simple for National Quilting Month to kind of get our feet wet, dip our toes in the quilty waters, so to speak. And, just kind of, it's a precursor for things to come. And hopefully we can, progress as the month goes on and build our confidence in the quilty universe. So, all right. Let's see. Hey, Colleen, I see you there. Ooh, 16 degrees. All right. Well, I hope that you're staying warm. And if not, get your sewing machine moving and cozy up to it. I don't know. All right. Let's see. Before we get started here, I have some exciting news. It is one of our best promotions of the year. Free shipping, no minimums. Woo! Love this one. I was going to put a party noise on here, but it sounds kind of weird. You like the party noise? That is in celebration of free shipping. So be sure to jot down. Free shipping is the code you need to put in at checkout to get free shipping. No minimum purchase. So you could shop all of our gifts, all of our kits, all of our things, and get free shipping. You'll notice that this coupon expires in a few days. Man, that's really small. 3/8/2026 at midnight Pacific time. So you can use this for a couple of days, add some things to your cart that I'm going to talk about today, and get free shipping. I hate paying for shipping, so this is my favorite. All right, so before we get started, next Tuesday is our All the Things Quilted Tote live webcast in partnership with QT Fabrics. This is becoming one of our most popular events, and we haven't even had it yet. So make sure that you are registered. Once you register, you will get access to the event page so that on the day and time of the event, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, you can simply click on over to the event page and watch the event, participate in our live chat, and you are eligible to win up to 2 door prizes. You don't have to be present to win. You just need to be registered. I know a number of you have won some things in the past, so good luck to you all. Leslie, I'm talking to you. I know you won something at the mystery box, but still. All right. Also, not only do you get access to the event, you also get 2 free machine embroidery designs with your free registration. One of them is the Sulky hummingbird, and the other design is the Sulky bird nest. These designs are actually not even featured in the webcast, but they go along with the theme so nicely. So we package those up together as a little freebie and a thank you for registering. So you'll get those designs. You can actually choose to put those on the pockets of your tote or feature them on your tote in some way. But I will say the fabric that we are using from QT Fabrics, which is part of the kit for the event, is all bird themed, and it's a fabric panel. So speaking of National Quilting Month, if you've never worked with fabric panels before, they allow you a number of bonuses, I guess, for using this type of fabric or this printed fabric. You can quilt as you would like and just do a whole cloth quilt using a fabric panel, or you can block out all of these little bird motifs. See how they already have a little bit of border around them? There's actually a border print included in the fabric panel. So we're going to talk a lot about different ways that you can piece these blocks together once you fussy cut them out of the panel. And then we're going to create a really great tote bag pattern, or tote bag rather, using the All the Things Tote pattern by Knot and Thread Design. The pattern is included with purchase of the kit. We also are selling the pattern separately. So if you want to use different fabric, you are more than welcome to. And you can grab up that pattern as well. It is a paper pattern, which is really nice to work with in this case, I think, because actually there aren't really pattern pieces that you need to use. You're really just working with a lot of squares and rectangles. Also with the kit, along with that fabric panel print, you're getting two other fabrics, one for the lining and one for the accent of the tote, which I used the bird's nest fabric there as like the, I wouldn't really call it piping, but it's really kind of just binding, which helps our tote come together. You also get some Soft and Stable. This is a product from By Annie. It's really great for these nice structured tote bags. You get some webbing. You get a couple of D-ring swivel clips, which actually are not part of the original pattern. That is a modification that I've added in to add some functionality to the tote and a little bit of designer detailing. So I'm going to go over that modification with you during the webcast as well, if you would also like to add that to your tote. You get 3 spools of Sulky thread. One's for construction, the other 2 are for quilting. And then you get a pack of quilting needles in assorted sizes so that you can use all of those different thread weights and types, and you will have the recommended needle sizes for both of those. So my finished tote, I mean, I know I showed you all this last week, but it's already getting so much use. It's a really large scale tote. It comes in small, medium, and large size. So check that out on the pattern envelope as well. Big pockets on the side. You can actually reverse this pattern and have the pockets on the inside of your tote if you would like. We'll talk about that too. And then here's my little modification. I added these D-ring swivel clips with a little bit of extra webbing to the inside of the tote. So you can clip your keys, you can clip little zipper pouches, things like that to the inside, because the inside is really quite cavernous. It's really the only word I can think of to describe it. And so when you add those little D-ring swivel clips, you can attach your keys there and just have a little bit easier time finding the things that you need inside. This is a really great car tote. If you have trouble, like I do, keeping your car organized, maybe you have 3 children like I do who are just always with all their stuff in the car. This is a nice way to corral all of that. And then weekly, you can bring it in the house and say, "Come get your things, my children." Anyways, we can all dream. Okay. All right. So I hope you're all signed up for that, because that's happening next Tuesday, right after the So What. So we will still go live for So What at noon Eastern time. And then we will head on over to sewingonline.sulky.com for the All the Things Quilted Tote webcast at 2 p.m. Eastern time. All right. And once you register as well, you can add the event to your calendar and it will automatically populate in your time zone. If you use our little add to calendar link, that's one of the cool things so that you know exactly when it's happening for you and you don't have to worry about missing any moment of the webcast. Terry is saying, how do we sign up? So I linked directly to the registration page in the description of today's post here. So you won't be seeing the entire description of today's post. You see just a little truncated version of that. Click on the See More button at the bottom of the screen where I'm talking here, or that button might just say More. Click on that and the whole description will pop out. You'll find links for everything I'm talking about today, including our Quilty Bookmark project. You will also find links to register for next week's webcast. You'll find a link for that kit, and you'll find a link for our travel opportunities that we have in partnership with Craft Tours. That link is also at the bottom of your screen. I wanted to bring this up today because in a couple weeks on March 19th, I'm going to have a town hall, which is basically like a glorified Zoom meeting, if you will. And I'm going to talk to you about our Craft Tours destinations for 2026 and beyond. We are starting off with our trip to Germany, France, and Switzerland. This is at the end of this year. It's prime Christmas market season, and it's going to be just an absolutely breathtaking, beautiful trip. And then in the summer of 2027, we are headed to Bali. As most of you know, or many of you know, we went to Bali last year. It all starts to run together sometimes, but it was an incredible journey. And this is all going to be all focused on batiks, making our own batiks, batik shopping. We will be on the beach for part of this journey. We will be in Ubud for part of this journey. It's just an amazing tour. And then we are going to Tuscany in the fall of 2027. We'll be in Florence. We'll be at the Montecatini Terme. We'll be at the Cinque Terre. We will be doing all the beautiful things in Tuscany, drinking all the wine, eating all the foods. If you watched any of the Olympics, you may have a hankering to go to Italy like I do. So you can join Sulky on that tour as well. But if you have questions, if you've never done group travel and you're kind of curious as to what to expect, or you just want to learn more or ask your questions, in an environment where I can just speak directly to you, you can join our town hall meeting on March 19th. It's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's a Thursday. If you can't join that town hall meeting, I'm going to post the video of it on our YouTube page after the event, and I will share it out from there. So you can at least watch it, and then you can ask your questions on YouTube, and I'll get pinged for those questions. But if you do want live real-time answers, you can join that town hall. And I will link to it in the description of today's post because I think I forgot to add that link. So I'll add that link as soon as I can. Let me see if I can actually put it on the screen. I don't know if that'll be helpful. Let's see. It's not working. I was going to put it on the screen. Oh, well, I'll add it into the description of today's post for you if you want to add or attend the town hall. You really don't need to register for it or anything. But if you do click that you're interested, then you'll get pinged when we're about to go live and you can be like, oh yeah, I'm going to jump on that meeting real quick and ask my questions. Also, if you subscribe to the Sulky e-newsletter, so the email newsletter, we will have a sign up there as well with the link and all of that. Our newsletter comes out next Friday, I want to say. So if you're all signed up for that, you'll get the information there as well. All right, you can always just, pop a question in the chat right now if you have a question about any of those tours or group travel, those kinds of things, and we can address them today as well. All right, so let's get to our National Quilting Month spotlight of the month. Ooh, one more thing I wanted to mention. Last week, we did a project on a Cork travel tech roll-up. Super simple project. We used cork fabric, 2 pockets, roll it up, and you can store your earbuds and your charger cords and your, travel documents and things inside of it. So a number of people asked if their passport would fit in one of the pockets. So I took the cork travel roll and I grabbed my passport, and wait till you see. It's like it was made for the passport. It just fits in here like a glove. Isn't that a happy accident? So if you do want to use this as a passport sleeve, instead of rolling it up, you'll just need to fold it into thirds. And then you can take your ties, wrap them around, just kind of tuck them in, or you can create a bow out of them, and you have your little passport sleeve that has a couple of other pockets for some other things as well. So here's our little slip pocket. It has that little stitching divider line. So some other things you can fit in here too. So one way is to just roll it, right? And then you'd have kind of some excess if you had your passport in there, or you can just fold it into thirds. So I did want to, share with you that it does in fact work, and that was a great idea and a happy accident. I didn't even measure it for a passport, and there you have it. All right. I mean, I guess if my stitching was any wider on that pocket, it wouldn't fit. So again, love it when something works out like that. All right, let's see. Terry says, I can't find the tote sign up. So at the way bottom of the description of today's post, it'll say register for our webcast. It's at the way bottom. I think it's going to be before the craft tours link. So let me know if you still can't find it once you look at the whole description. Oh, Jill, thank you so much. Jill has put it in the chat. Perfect. Daniel is asking, how strenuous are the craft tours? This is a great question. Thank you for asking it. I will say some require a bit more walking than others. And I will say when we go to Bali, we are going to be staying, one of our hotels that we're staying at requires you to be a little bit more steady on your feet because it's a little bit rocky. There's stairs where you're going to need to negotiate to get to your room and things like that. So I would say Bali is probably a little bit more strenuous at times. Of course, when we're on the beach in Bali, we're at a resort and you can lounge in a chair when we're not on our excursions. So that's the other thing about these group travel experiences. It is what you make it. So if there is an excursion or something that you're just less interested in, maybe you want to stay and have a restful day at the resort that day. You don't have to join the group for every single thing that we do. Of course, if you want to, 100%, you're paying for that. It's your, trip. It's your vacation. It's your experience. So if there are days, like for example, when we're in Bali, we go to a bird park one day. And I do recall, where the bus lets us out and where we have to kind of walk to the entrance of the bird park. There's a little bit of a steep incline to get there. I will say, it's a little bit, but it is a steep incline. So, if there are things like that where you think maybe you wouldn't be able to negotiate that very well, you can always do something else that day. Or we may even be able to make, some different accommodations. When you're traveling with a group, you generally have to just abide by whatever the bus driver has to do. Sometimes they have to go to a different parking lot. And so you have to walk a little bit, longer or farther than maybe you would if somebody, dropped you off at the front in a cab. But you are also more than welcome to get your own transportation for, certain things where you think maybe that's an issue. I know I'm babbling at this point, but you get the point. I will say Tuscany, what a beautiful tour this is. A lot of walking. A lot. I don't, if you've ever just Googled Florence, it's a walking city. That being said, you can sit at a coffee shop and you can people watch, and you don't have to, walk at, a crazy pace and try to keep up with everyone and everything around you. So there are options. The Christmas market tours, I would say, are actually, ironically, a little bit more leisurely than the other tours I just mentioned. Because when we go to a Christmas market, it's like, there's the Christmas market, right? You can choose to walk it really slowly, experience just a few booths, sit down, have a glue vine by the fire, and have it as leisurely as you want. So, there are still things like cobblestone streets to be aware of and stuff like that. So I hope that answers your question without going too far into it. Can scooters be used? I'll need to check with craft tours on that, but I don't think you can use a scooter because of our coach just not being able to accommodate that in most cases. So I do think you are not able to use a scooter or a wheelchair on the tours. You can, however, use any kind of cane. I've had people, they get these canes that actually have like a flip down seat on them. They're so cool. You can find them on Amazon. But it's a cane. And then when we kind of stop, if we're on a walking tour or something like that, you just push down on a part of the cane and this little seat pops out and you can take a rest right there while we're stopped. And those are amazing. So if you do need those rests and things like that, invest in something like that because I wanted one at the end of the day in Florence one day. I was like looking around envious at some of my tour mates who had those. So I hope that's helpful. Okay. All right. So let's get to our Quilty Bookmark. Again, this is a quick project that you can personalize in so many different ways and really make it your own. I like it because if you're kind of new to quilting or maybe, you think quilting is just a little bit too repetitive or arduous, you've got to make 78 blocks of this one block. For me, I love quilting and I love figuring out different ways to kind of assembly line style sew my blocks together. I don't know if you can see, but I have a stack of quilt blocks I'm working on right now, in fact, for a project that's coming down the line here. It starts to get really repetitive for me, so I like to break up the action, instead of just sewing all the blocks one day, I'll sew like a good chunk of them, and then I'll do like, I'll press all of those just to kind of like get out of that zone for a little while. And then go back to it, and then I can piece together the top and things like that. That's when it really gets exciting for me, is when I can start seeing the whole quilt come together. But with something like this little Quilty Bookmark, you can experiment with creating half square triangles, and that is probably one of my favorite sort of mini quilt blocky piecing projects to do, is create tons of half square triangles, and then just depending on how you display them and how you piece them together, you can come up with hundreds of different quilt block looks, quilt top looks, borders, things like this for your projects. So you don't have to get super, super complicated with quilts. You can make a ton of half square triangles and never make the same quilt twice, just by arranging them in different ways. So that's kind of what we're going to do with this bookmark. We only need 3 half square triangles, super easy. So once you get the hang of making the half square triangles in the most efficient way possible, then you will feel confident to tackle something a little bit larger scale. Also with this, I'm doing the quilting by hand because it's this little bookmark and I can use some heavy thread and do big stitch quilting. I also added some hand embroidery because the project was so simple. I could spend a little bit more time on the quilting and the embellishment. But of course, if you want to do the quilting by machine, by all means, make it your own. Make the fabric the star, add applique. The possibilities are truly endless. So for the thread, for the quilting, I chose 12 weight cotton Petites thread. This is our super thick thread that we recommend for handwork, okay? It is also used for big stitch quilting, decorative top stitching. You can use it in your sewing machine if you have a large enough needle. You need a size 100 needle. It'll say 116. And that needle has an eye that is big enough to accommodate this thread thickness. So 1 strand of this thread is equal to 2 strands of traditional embroidery floss. So you can use 1 strand for the big stitch quilting, 2 strands for really thick big stitch quilting. You can also combine colors. So you can use, let's say, this light pink and maybe a darker pink or even a metallic in the needle at the same time and do your big stitch quilting. That's a really cool effect. So that is the thread we're going to use for the quilting and for the hand embroidery if you choose to add hand embroidery. So that's going to be my giveaway today for one lucky viewer who is watching the So What, commenting, giving me those emojis, sharing out the post today. That's all you have to do to be automatically eligible to win this gift from Sulky today, which is our 12 weight cotton Petites Greens Sampler. That's right. So I thought this would be a great gift for this time of year since St. Patrick's Day is coming up. And you'll have all the greens, right? Okay. All right, so here is our cute little Quilty bookmark. And what I like about this bookmark is it's pretty and practical, right? And the pretty part of the bookmark is displayed on the outer side of the book. And then we just have a piece of fold over elastic that's keeping our place in the book. So all of that pretty thread work, the pretty fabrics that you're using, the pretty hand embroidery if you choose to add embroidery, you can see it all the time. It's not hidden inside of the book. That also means we can go as thick as we want with the thread work, and it's not going to make our book all kind of weird along the spine because your book is still going to be able to be flat when you're storing it until you're ready to start reading again. All right, let's see. Stephanie says, looks like a lovely gift. Yes, these totally make great gifts. You can personalize them for the recipient really easily. Great for stash busting. You can also use little sequins, little beads, little buttons, all the little accoutrements that you have that you've been saving. You know, you've got one of this really cute little button. What are you going to do with it? Put it on one of these cute little bookmarks, and now you've decorated it. And again, you can be as big and as bold and as bulky with those embellishments because this is going on the front of the book and not the inside. All right, so first things first, we're going to gather our materials. All the dimensions for everything I did for this bookmark are on the Sulky blog. I also linked to the full tutorial for this project in the description of today's post. So you can click on that and head over to the full tutorial. You need a rectangle of fabric for the back of your bookmark, and then you need a couple of squares of different fabrics for your half square triangles. So I actually have 4 squares of fabric, which is going to make how many half square triangles? 4 half square triangles. However, I only need 3 half square triangles, so I'm going to have 1 left over. So if you want to make a couple of these, then you can do the math to come out even on your half square triangles. You will have 1 extra doing your half square triangles this way, which I think is the most efficient way of sewing them, because when you're creating a half square triangle, it's actually a square comprised of 2 triangles, and you sew along the bias edge. So if you pre-cut your triangles and then sew along that bias edge, you run the risk of having a little bit of stretch in your half square triangle block. If you do it this way, not only do you minimize that stretch, but you also can make 2 in the amount of time it would take to create just 1. All right. So we're going to take 2 of our squares, right sides together, and you're going to draw a diagonal line from one upper edge corner to the opposite lower edge corner. That line is going to be your cutting line. All right. So here we have our cutting line in yellow. You may want to choose a different marker or fabric marking pen or color of chalk for your stitching line marks. I just used a pencil so that you could really see it here. You can, obviously use maybe a pencil along your cutting line and then your chalk along your stitching line, whatever you want. I just think it's easier when you're at the machine, especially if you're going to create a bunch of these all at once, chain piece them. Then, your mind is saying like, okay, stitch along the pencil line or stitch along the red line or whatever, so that you don't get confused as you go along. So we're going to sew along the pencil lines here. That is our stitching line, and the yellow line is our cutting line. All right. I also engaged my little laser light on my sewing machine. I love that thing. And a lot of the times I forget that I even have it. But you can place that line right along your stitching line that you created in the previous step. All right, so now I've got this completed on both of my fabric squares. Stephanie's asking, what's the yellow pen that you're using? It's actually a yellow chalk pen, chalk marker. Let me grab it and I'll show it to you. It's by Clover. And what I also love about it is they offer refills. So it is this little Choco pen or chalk, whatever. And on the end, there's a little wheel, like a tracing wheel. Can you hear it? So there's a little tracing wheel. I just marked my finger with chalk. And a tiny little bit of chalk comes out every time you just, roll that along your fabric. It's my favorite pen to use, or chalk to use. And it works on, different weights of fabrics and all the things. And then to fill it up, you just open this up and fill it with a little chalk refill. There's my little yellow chalk. So you can have this forever as long as they keep making that chalk refill. I have a little chalk. I try to always have a refill on me because I use this so often, but it just comes in this little plastic container. So that's what I use. It's my favorite little tool. See how thin your line can get too? A lot of the times I go over it many times when I'm showing it to you on screen so that you can really see that yellow line. But if you're just at home, it just needs to be, as dark as it needs to be for you to see it. All right. So once we've sewn along our stitching lines, not our cutting lines, and then we are going to cut along our cutting lines. I find it best to use a rotary cutter and a clear ruler and my self-healing cutting mat. You can certainly use scissors, but again, if you are making like hundreds of half square triangles, this is just a mere fraction of what I was working with. If you're making a ton of those, much quicker work to just zip through it with your rotary cutter. All right. So now we've got our half square triangles all completed. Again, 2 fabric squares per each print, right? So 4 fabric squares are going to give you 4 half square triangles. So you really need to press your seam allowance as well. I always press toward the darker fabric, and then you can trim up your little dog ears that are poking out and make sure that these are all the same exact size and shape. All right. Now comes the fun part of arranging the half square triangles for the bookmark. As I mentioned, you only need 3 using the dimensions that I used in the blog post. You know, if you have a larger book, use all 4 of them. But I found that 3 was pretty universal for a lot of book sizes that I had in my house, at least. All right, so you can arrange your half square triangles in many different ways. This is just one way where you can see now we have our little, what are these, parallelograms taking shape of our fabric prints. You can arrange them this way so that it's just half square triangle, and you can see all of those distinct triangle shapes. This is what I ultimately went with for my arrangement, because along that lower floral fabric larger triangle that's created once you piece these together, I thought to myself, I'm going to add embroidery right here. And this gives me a great little spot for that embroidery. So if you are going to add an applique or an embroidery or something like that, keep that in mind when you are arranging your little blocks as well. It's also really cute to pair a solid fabric with a print. And then along the solid fabrics, you could add some little embellishments, whether it's cute little buttons, sequins, a little hand embroidery. You get the idea. All right, so once you have your arrangement, you're going to sew your half square triangles together. And then at that point, I pressed open those seams and I added some Soft and Sheer Extra fusible permanent stabilizer to the wrong side of my bookmark front. So this is kind of like adding an interfacing to it, but it's also stabilizing it so that when we add the embroidery and we add the hand quilting, it's nice and stable for us and we can stitch in hand without having to, you know, hoop this in some way. Since it's so narrow, right? I believe the bookmark dimensions are like 3 inches by 9 inches when all is said and done, something like this. So that would be really difficult to add hand embroidery to. You'd need a really small hoop and all those things. So instead, we're going to add stabilizer to the wrong side, which also is a really nice addition when we want to make sure all of our seams are nice and flat. And actually, it looks like all of my seams were pressed open rather than to one side. So really, it's up to you on that one. But sorry, I misspoke earlier. But you could see how when we fuse that stabilizer, it's like fusing our seams open as well and making sure everything's nice and flat for us. I love adding the Soft and Sheer Extra when I'm going to do hand embroidery. It just adds a little bit more sort of like thread count to the fabric so that it can accept a lot more stitches, especially if you're working with a super delicate fabric like a cotton sateen, or even some quilting cotton fabrics are really, really lightweight and delicate. So once we have that, we can figure out what kind of quilting we want to do on our little bookmark. So as I mentioned, I used the 12 weight cotton, and you can use 1 strand or 2 strands of this. And I just did big stitch quilting along that half square triangle seam. Again, you could do this by machine if you want to add quilting by machine. You could do straight line quilting, matchstick quilting, free motion quilting, you name it. This is really a great time to sort of practice those techniques, get used to lowering the feed dogs and trying your hand at free motion. Because let's face it, it's just a little bookmark. We just use some scrap fabrics or, a very small amount of fabric. So if we do really hate the end result after we're done quilting, it's not that difficult to go back and just make another one and try it again. All right, so here's my big stitch quilting. Just along that kind of zigzag pattern that's created from the piecing. And then I thought I'm going to add hand embroidery. So a little secret for my So What viewers here. This is a super duper sneak peek of a brand new product line we are going to be offering here at Sulky. This is not even going to come out until the summer. So this is a super big sneak peek that I'm sharing with you. But these embroidery designs are all from the brand new Cactus Rose Rodeo fabric line by QT Fabrics. And you can see that this little snake motif completely matches the snake motif from the fabrics. So what we have coming down the pipe here, is it pipe or pike? Anyways, what's coming up that you will start to notice in the summertime is we're partnering with some fabric designers to bring you these hand embroidery and cross stitch and machine embroidery designs that all coordinate with fabulous new fabrics. I know. So this little snake, again, is from Cactus Rose Rodeo, and it comes pre-printed on a sheet of Sulky Stick and Stitch Stabilizer. And all you have to do is cut out the motif and place it on the right side of your fabric and sew right through it with your hand needle, switching up your threads as desired. So I just wanted to bring you a little sneak peek because, you're my So What peeps and you deserve it. Little advanced knowledge. We do have some hand embroidery transfers and hand embroidery transfers with thread at sulky.com at the moment. I link directly to them in the description of today's post. One is called Holiday Cheer and the other one is called Fall Botanicals. So if you're itching to stitch some of these, you can find those at sulky.com. Again, they are pre-printed with the motifs already on them. All you have to do is cut them out, put them on your fabric where you would like them, and start stitching. Love it. Yes, Susan says, now I know why I couldn't find that snake online. Sorry, but I had to give you a sneak peek. All right, so that's what the sticker looks like before you peel off the paper backing. And here's what it looks like when you stick it to your fabric. Do you see how there's like a fabric-like quality to the sticker? It is completely water soluble. It's just compressed fibers that you can print on. So after we're done with the embroidery, we just wash all that away and there's no trace of it left behind. It is the most genius way to transfer an embroidery design. You can actually purchase some stick and stitch and print your own design onto it. You can also put that over the top of your bookmark, your mini quilt. You can piece them together on a larger quilt, the large stick and stitch sheets, which are 8.5 by 11. And then you can draw your own quilting design right on the stick and stitch when it's on your fabric, sew over it, rinse it all away, and now you have amazing quilting that looks like you just made it up as you went along. So these transfers are really, really cool. All right, so here's what it looks like. My embroidery is finished and my sticker is still intact. Can you see that? That little fabric-like water-soluble sticker. I did a bunch of French knots and back stitches and stem stitches along the whole outline of my little snake. I see some of you saying, I'm not really a fan of snakes, and I get that. The fabric line is actually more about, um, kind of cowgirl motifs and horseshoes and things like that. So that's where the snake comes into play. All right, so after your embroidery is complete, we're actually going to finish constructing the whole bookmark before we even remove all that stabilizer. So we're going to take that fold over elastic, put it right side facing our bookmark front, and then we're going to clip it to the short edge centers. And you'll notice that the elastic is cut a little bit shorter than our exterior bookmark rectangle. That is so that you get a nice snug fit around your book. So depending on, if you want to make this pretty universal to fit a lot of different books, you can go with my dimensions in the blog post. If you're making a bookmark for a smaller sort of like paperback book, you might only want 2 half square triangles and a much shorter piece of elastic. So just keep those things in mind when you are making yours. All right, once we have that, you can base the ends in place so that they won't go anywhere. And then you will put your backing fabric over the top, right sides facing, so you're sandwiching that elastic, and just stitch those short ends. So now our elastic is permanently in between our exterior and lining bookmark rectangles. So now the only thing to do really is to sew those long edges, but you want to be sure to leave an opening opposite of the embroidery. Leave an opening for turning this right side out along just one of those long edges. Then we're going to clip those curves, and also, just as I mentioned, your elastic is cut shorter. So when you're sewing it, you're going to sew a little bit, and then you're going to have to leave your needle down and kind of maneuver the fabric so that you can sew the rest of that seam straight, because it is going to want to bow a little bit because of that elastic being shorter. So now we're going to clip those corners and turn our bookmark right side out. You can give it a little bit of a press. However, do not put your iron near or on that stick and stitch sticker that we need to remove still. It will gum up everything. It will be a disaster. So if you're nervous about that, don't press your bookmark at all until all of that is dry, all of that is gone and dry, and your bookmark is complete. Then you can give it a final press. All right, so now we need to fold our opening edges into the wrong side, clip it shut, and just do a final top stitch along your entire bookmark rectangle. And you really do, where is my bookmark? You really do want to maneuver your elastic away from the stitching when you are top stitching. I actually made this mistake. I just remembered where I put it. Bear with me just one moment. I top stitched right over the top of my elastic, which you can see here. There's my little top stitching line. And in hindsight, I wished I had just moved it away, like this while I was top stitching so that I didn't sew over it, because it just kind of creates a little extra, I guess, I don't know, stitching that you don't need right there. I wish that my elastic would be free of that top stitching. So keep that in mind when you're going along the whole thing. All right, after your top stitching, really that's it. So this is what it looks like on the wrong side. This is what it looks like on the right side. You can see how it kind of bows out a little ways because our elastic is shorter, and that way you can stretch it around your book and keep your place. So now we need to remove that stick and stitch stabilizer, or that transfer sticker, if you will. So all you need to do is rinse your finished project under warm running water. You want to make sure that the water is running off of the project and you're not submerging it in the water. Sometimes you can have success with that, but I would say you run the risk of your printer ink kind of coming out when your stabilizer starts to dissolve and break free. Some of those little bits will still have printer ink on them, and they can, move to other areas of your project and transfer printer ink onto your fabric. You don't want that. So I really just recommend make sure your water is running off of the project so that when the stabilizer starts to lift off of the fabric and dissolve and break free, it moves off of your fabric and doesn't go settle somewhere else. All right. And warm water, the reason for that is it's just going to get rid of the stabilizer quicker. So I guess you use less water. But you can also do it under cool water. It's just going to take a little bit more time. So once all of that is removed, sometimes you might want to give it a little agitation with your fingertips to make sure that the stabilizer is really coming free from behind all of the intricate, French knots or detail stitching, those kinds of things. And then you just want to let it dry flat on an absorbent towel. Once it's dry, you can give it a little bit of a press, steering clear of that embroidery if possible. And then you have your beautiful bookmark. And then you can go find a new book that matches your bookmark. So there you have it. Super easy entry-level quilty project to kick off National Quilting Month and to kind of get those quilty juices flowing, if you will. All right. Gail says, I love how easy they are, but so cute. Linda has never used the 12-weight thread. This is a great project to kind of get used to it. Try your hand at it. If you don't enjoy hand stitching, or if you have, let's say, arthritic hands, things like that, you can use that 12-weight thread in your sewing machine as well. And good news, when we release all of these great new embroidery transfers this summer, we will have coordinating machine embroidery designs as well. So you could do that snake by hand, or you could do that snake by machine. And lots of other motifs that are featured in the beautiful fabrics by QT Fabrics. All right. Anne says, please show the back side again. Happy to. So here's the back side. It's got our fold over elastic, and you pull it taut, and that's your rectangle. It's just one rectangle of fabric for the back, and your half square triangles with or without your embroidery with a little bit of big stitch quilting. All right, perfect. Okay, Grace says, what a clever project. Why did I never think of that myself? That's why we come together here on So What, is to bounce ideas off of each other, and then we can make all of these projects our own by our fabric choices, our design choices, the different ways that we arrange those half square triangles. No two bookmarks will look alike. All right, let's see. So many ideas popping into your brain. Love it. Hey, Allie, I see you. All right, perfect. Let's see. Does it come in pages so you could run it through your printer to print the design on it? Yes, it does. So if you purchase up just the stick and stitch package, which is this, you get 12 8.5 by 11 sheets of the fabric-like stabilizer. So you can put this in your regular printer. One side is the paper backing that covers the sticker. The other side is this fabric-like water-soluble stuff. This is the side you print on. Then you cut it out just like a sticker, put it onto your fabric, sew through it by hand, sew through it by machine, whatever you desire, and then rinse it away in the same way that I mentioned there. This stuff is amazing. Love it. It also comes in rolls and by the bolt under the name of Sticky Fabrisolvi. But if you want these printable 8.5 by 11 sheets, Stick and Stitch is where it's at. And then you can also find our pre-printed hand embroidery transfer packs and hand embroidery transfer packs with thread. And I link directly to those in the description of today's post. All right. Hand embroidery is a nice touch. Thank you, Amy. Love that. Let's see. Karen has a great addition. She says you could add a half-length little pocket or even a loop for a pen or pencil. Ooh, I see some new bookmarks on the horizon. Love that idea. Joe Allen says, oh, what is fold over elastic? Okay, so fold over elastic usually comes in, well, it comes in basic colors, black, white, neutrals, but it also comes in really fun colors as well. So fold over elastic, see how the middle of this elastic has sort of a line down it, right? That is actually meant to be a fold line. See that? So you can use fold over elastic for in place of binding on things where you want an elastic edge. I use them a lot for things like this because this elastic is just so much prettier than a plain, run-of-the-mill white elastic that you would buy in a package. But you could certainly use that other type of elastic for this project. It doesn't have to be fold over elastic. I just like that you can find fold over elastic in a lot of different colors. So you can match it to your project a little bit better. And, let's say you have this beautiful bookmark and it's all in these black and white prints and you've added this beautiful red embroidery or something. And then you have to go put this white elastic on the back of it. For me, that's kind of a bummer. But I mean, it's not a deal breaker, right? You're still completing the project. But dare I say, you'd probably be able to find fold over elastic in a beautiful red that matched your embroidery, or, a really rich dark black, something like this. So at any rate, that's fold over elastic. And you could see one side of it is kind of shiny and the other side of it is kind of dull. And you can actually use either side depending on what you want for your project look. You can use either side as the right side. So you can have this kind of matte look, or you can have this kind of shiny look. So I've seen it on like cuffs of like a sweatshirt or a fleece top or something like that, where you want a finished edge, but it needs to be stretchy still. So you would use this fold over elastic. And yes, it is a lot thinner, a lot thinner than like waistband elastic would be. All right. Online source for fold over elastic. I would say byannie.com. They have a lot of different colors of fold over elastic. And goodness, I would start there. And see what you can find. Sharon says, and you can also use those on undies or slips. Do we still wear slips? Love that comment. Swimwear, lingerie, doll clothes. Yes, Daniel. All of those things where you want it to be a little bit more delicate or you want this nice feel against your skin. But yes, thank you for that. I have used that on making my own swimsuit too. So dive into the world of fold over elastic. Love it. All right. Well, I hope that you all go out and make your own cute little bookmarks today. Share them with all of your friends. Learn some new quilting piecing techniques, different quilting techniques, hand embroidery, use that stick and stitch, and take a really simple project and make it your own. All right. Well, have a great rest of your day, everyone. Don't forget, next Tuesday is our All the Things Quilted Tote webcast in partnership with QT Fabrics. So join me next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time over at sewingonline.sulky.com.